What time did they finish the shiur? Not shiur, Mincha Shachar.
They finished about 40 minutes ago.
40 minutes ago. So by 6:30 they're done?
About.
Okay. If it's more convenient, are you praying here? If you are praying and you want to start earlier, I would be able to come earlier.
The question is, right. The question is, what about the others? Will it be okay for them, or if there is others?
If there is others, let's start from there.
Okay, whatever you want. We'll talk about
whatever is easier for you.
We'll talk about it. Whatever is good for you. Okay, so we're saying, "V'aretz hayta tohu v'avohu, v'choshech al panei tehom, v'ruach Elohim merachepet al panei hamayim."
And Aretz was told and told. What he said, it was good. What does it mean? It was good.
Sorry.
What does it mean? It was good.
No, it doesn't say it was good. It says tohu v'avohu.
What does it mean?
What does that mean? That it's all like mixed up. Not organized.
Tohu is good, no?
Tohu. Tohu v'avohu.
Okay.
It's an expression in Hebrew, right? Which means what? It's totally disorganized.
Okay.
Not organized. Not founded. Just total mishmash. That's what it means. Tohu v'avohu. Right? V'choshech al panei tehom, and all over the tehom, over the deep waters, was hovering over choshech, which means darkness. Right? V'ruach Elohim merachepet al panei hamayim. That's what it says, right? That the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Then it goes on to say, Elohim, let's see. Yehi or vayhi or. So the first thing he commands is that there should be or. Right? There should be or. That means that there should be light. And when he commanded, there was light. Right? So what does that mean? That means that the world was created not with a hammer and sickle. The world was created by words, by commandments, right? So the Creator, God, creates the world with commandments. He doesn't create them with a physical action. So that's the way of God. The way of God is to create with words. And also, a person who is on that level, a person who becomes a tzaddik, big rabbi, this, that, he also gets to that level that he can also say something and create something. And it's in the Gemara, right? It says in the Gemara that there was 3 rabbis that were sitting on Erev Shabbat on Friday, and they didn't have any meat. I guess they couldn't afford it. So they went and they said some words and they created a cow. They created a calf. Then they slaughtered it and ate that for Shabbat. Right? So you see from there that what? That a real creator creates with his mouth, not with his hands. Right? So a person who works with his hands is not emulating the way of God. That's like the way of the earth. That's the way of the earth. But the way of God is with the mouth. And this is why they say, right, that what's the difference between the Jewish people and the Goyim? Right? It says that Yadayim Yadei Esav. Right? What does that mean? Esav is a representation of the Goyim. It's a personification of the Goyim. So what that means is that the Goyim, the way they accomplish things in this world is with their hands. They're right. Yeah, right. Like they make a nice Mercedes, and they make you know about that stuff. So they make all these things. So that's called Yadayim Yadei Esav. That's what the pasuk says, right? And when Yitzhak Avinu came to give bracha to Yaakov and Esav, so first he called Esav. So he said, you know what? Go bring me some food, and hunt an animal, cook it for me, make a barbecue, bring it over, and I'll bless you. Once I eat the food, I'll bless you. That was the way it was done.
Why did he ask that? Because he was hungry?
No, he wanted to bless him because Esav was the firstborn.
Right, I know that.
So he was about to die. So he wanted to now,
Rabbi, I know that very well. But he could have said, "Come, let me bless you."
Yeah.
And then bring me food.
Good. Good. No, so the reason that he had to bring him food is because when a person wants to bless you, and you give him pleasure, so he can bless you with a full heart. That's what it means, Okay. So this is the reason why he told him, bring me food, bring me drink, bring me wine, and I'm gonna feel really, really good, right? As the Chazal say, right? And simcha ela bebasar beyain, right? That the simcha, the happiness, comes from when a person is on a holiday, right? On the Chag. Mm-hmm. So how do you get happiness? So the Chazal say, right? You should have meat and wine. This is what brings you happiness. So over here also, he wanted to be in a state of simcha. He wanted to be in a state of bliss, happiness. So therefore he told him, bring me this and this, I'll be very, very happy, meat and wine, and then I'll be able to bless you with a full heart, with the proper intention, because he's happy. So then what happened was, as you know, that Yaakov came and stole the blessings.
We'll get the question later.
Right. But I'm getting back to that, right? So he stole the blessings.
Yeah.
So then what happened was that comes Esav, after Yaakov Avinu already got the blessings, comes and he says, comes in and says, no, I'm here. Okay, I got you the food. Everything's ready. Barbecue is ready. Everything's ready. Okay, so then what? He tells him, who are you? So he tells him, I'm Esav. No, Esav was already here. You're somebody else probably. So he told him, no, this is me, it's Esav. So he said, well, somebody else came and took your brachot. You know the story, right?
No, in that case, why couldn't he bless him again?
Right, that's a good question. He could, and he did, by the way. He did.
Different.
Right, gave him a different bracha.
Different.
Because there is a blessing which belongs to the firstborn, which is something like more. It's more grand, more powerful. So since it's something more grand and more powerful, so therefore you want that one, that's the main blessing. And then the rest is just, on the side, just like addition, something on the side. So this is why he wanted. But anyway, he comes and he says, let me feel you, my son, are you really Esav? Look, I thought Esav was already here. So, that's the story, right? So what happened? Before that, Yaakov Avinu came and he got the bracha, right? So what happened was that Yaakov Avinu, he put on hair on his, on his forearm, because he knew that he was going to touch him, and feel him, probably going to do it. So therefore he said, let me put some hair. So he took some goat hair, which is like human hair, very similar, So he put goat, and he went in, and when Yitzchak wanted to feel him, he said, let me feel you, my son. Oh, yeah. So he says, Yadayim Yedei Esav, Akol Kol Yaakov, V'Yadayim Yedei Esav. That's what he told him, right? So what does that mean? That the rabbis, according to the simple meaning, that means, right, that your voice sounds like Yaakov, but your hands are Esav. It's very strange. I don't understand what's going on here, Doesn't fit, doesn't match up. That's the simple meaning, right? But the more deeper meaning is what? The Chazal say in the Gemara, in the Talmud, they say that the deeper meaning is that the Jewish people call Kol Yaakov, that means that they do everything with their mouth. Everything they accomplish with their mouth. Like you said, you make those deals. Same thing, you understand? The Jewish people do everything with their mouth. Yadayim Yedei Esav, but Esav, the Goyim, they do with their hands. Yeah. So therefore, our specialty is the mouth. Why? Because we are the people of God. So therefore we emulate the ways of God. Just like God created the world with his mouth, so also we do, we create our success in this world with the mouth. So what do the Chazal say? What does that mean, the Jewish people with the mouth? That means that, we pray, our prayers, our Torah study, all these things are with the mouth. And this is what protects us. This is what gives us a success, and the survival that we need to survive in this world. We do it with our mouth. But they, Yadayim Yedei Esav, they do it with their hands. So Kadosh Baruch Hu, we emulate his ways, and they emulate the ways of the earth. They're more earthly, they're more physical. Yeah, they're more physical. So that also applies to something else, right? They say there's another explanation, which is what? Yadayim Yedei Esav. Akol Kol Yaakov, Yadayim Yedei Esav. The Gemara says, the Talmud says like this, that that means that what? That when the Jewish people are Kol Yaakov, their voice is working and they're praying and they're studying Torah, so then Esav does not succeed. But when they don't, there's no Kol Yaakov, then Yadayim Yedei Esav. In other words, then the Esav succeeds with his hands. What does that mean? He goes and makes wars and conquers lands. And he conquers the Jewish people even, he does everything, he conquers everything. Esav. How does he do that? Because Kol Yaakov, the voice of Yaakov is not being heard. So since the voice of Yaakov is not being heard, then Yadayim Yedei Esav, right? And Esav is the one who succeeds. So that's the way it is in this world, and this is why when Hakadosh Baruch Hu, when Bilam, wanted to curse the Jewish people, so Balak said, can we succeed to curse the Jewish people? So Bilam said, I can give you a litmus test. You really want to know if we can do it to curse them? Go to the yeshivot, and the Jewish people, and see if the children are saying the words of Torah, then we're not going to be able to do it. Because the words of Torah is what protects them, So that's what it was. And that's the way it always is. When we have words of Torah from from the Jewish people. So then Esav is not able to succeed with his hands, with the wars and with the conquests and all these things. This is what I mean.
Balak and Bilam, I have a lot of questions, but
we'll get that later, right? I don't know how long it's going to take, but eventually we'll get there. Okay. So anyway, getting back to what we're saying. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created everything with words. There was 10, right? The sages say that there was here 10 commands over here. Just like he gave us 10 commandments on Mount Sinai, right? Here also there was 10 commands to create the world. Eser Amirot, right? 10 sayings. So here we have them, right? As you see, right? We have here Yehi Or Vahi Or, there should be light. And then next pasuk says, the next verse says, right? Kitov Abdel Elohim ben Or uben HaChoshech. He separated between the light and the darkness. And then he says, Vaikra Elohim la'or yom l'choshech kara laila. He called this day, he called that night. Vayerev vayiboker yom echad. That was the first day. Then comes again, right? Yehi rakia betoch hamayim. He says, right, let there be sky between the water, two waters, right? So explain the Chazal. What does that mean that there should be sky between the waters? What does that mean? How many waters are there? There's water, so what does that mean? So they say the Chazal that it means that there's two waters. There is the upper waters and then there's the lower waters.
Like heavenly waters?
Right, heavenly waters. So meaning what? That there is a reservoir, right, which is above, somewhere way, 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 way high in the space somewhere, outer space, of water, which is stored up there, and it's there. So meaning what? That we have the water which is on the ocean, on the earth. That's the lower waters, and then we have the heavenly waters which are somewhere up in the sky, wherever they are. Right? It's above the 747s. Somewhere. Right, much higher. Yeah. So that's what it is. So therefore, that's the way it is. And it says in the Talmud also, right, that these two waters, the upper and lower, there is a little spot where they are connected. There is a little connection between them somewhere. A little dot, a little line that goes, between one and the other, and they are connected somehow, whatever. Okay, so therefore the sky, is really coming to what? To separate between those two waters.
Okay.
Right? The Shamayim, that's what we call Shamayim, right? So that Shamayim, the Chazal say, has 7 layers.
Now, Shamayim, when you say Shamayim, that's Gan Eden, or when you say may he reach the
Shamayim means not Gan Eden. Shamayim means it means the sky, the heavens.
Heavens.
Right, the heavens. Right.
Where the souls go, hopefully.
Yeah, but we're talking about much more than that, right? We're talking about the whole, space, the whole, the sky and the space, and all that. All the stuff that we see, in the astronomy, right? So, if that's the case, what happens is that there are 7 layers. It says in the Chazal, there are 7 layers of rakia, of sky, and each one has a separate name. So it's like similar, to what the scientists say today, right? That we have the atmosphere, and stratosphere, and the hemisphere, all these things, right? There's different levels. Mm-hmm. So the Chazal already knew that, beforehand. They didn't have to check that out.
Chazal. Who is Chazal?
The sages.
Sages, not
right.
just one guy.
Right. We're talking about many sages, right? As
sages that you mean rabbis in the ancient.
We're talking about the Talmudic sages, and also before that as well. Okay. So the sages were in the Talmud. They say there's about 3,000 Emoraim. That's what it's called. Right? Emoraim are the later rabbis of the Talmud, the later ones. And there's the former ones, which are called the Tanaim. So there's about 300 of them, it says, right? So that's what I was told by my rabbi. So we have altogether about 3,300, whatever, something like that in the Talmud. Those are the ones we call the sages. Right. Okay, very good. So let's go on. ויעש אלוהים את הרקיע ויבדל בין המים אשר מתחת הרקיע ובין המים של בין הרקיע ויהי כן. So whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he commanded, that's exactly what happened. Right? That all the things were structured just like he commanded. And all was done with verbal commands. No physical work. No physical labor. ויקרא אלוהים להקיע שמיים ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום שני. So then, right, this was the work of the second day. That he made the skies and the waters, all these things, and he called it Shamayim. So the Chazal Darshan, they make a drasha here, right, the rabbis. They say, why is it called Shamayim? What's the reason why they call this word? Sky, the heavens. It says, because they divide it into 2 words, right? Sham, Mayim. over there there's water. As we said, right? There's water also in the upper hemispheres. So over there, that's also called that water, right? The reason why we call it Shamayim is because there's water there. In the heavens, there's also water, and that's the reason why they call it Shamayim. Okay, let's go on. So then he says, "Vayomer Elohim yikavu hamayim mitachat hashamayim el makom echad b'tera'ei hayabasha vayichen." So what he did was, this is one of the amazing things, right? Which is what? That Kadosh Baruch Hu made borders for the water, because otherwise the water would just inundate the whole earth. There's enough water to drown the whole earth. In the world.
75% of the earth is water.
Right, exactly. So therefore, what he did was he made borders for the water, meaning to say that it cannot pass that area. Because if it would, it's going to inundate. We're going to get tsunami, right? That's what happens, right? So how does a tsunami occur? How does all these things occur? These tidal waves and all these things. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes removes those commands, those borders, in order to make a flood. So these floods, we saw in Texas what happened over there. Everybody's on a boat, rocking around, going off to the second floor on the roof. Why is that? Because sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in order to punish the sinners, he brings a flood to the world, and he removes those borders. Because really the truth is, if it wasn't for the fact that he commanded the water not to pass that area, it easily could and would. It has the power to do it, and it has, even in its nature, there is enough water and enough wind, all these things to inundate the whole world. So the only way that water holds is because of the command of God. Otherwise it should come up and drown everything. That's what it should do. So that's like a miracle in itself, that the water is like controlled like that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to live. We wouldn't have life over here in this world. By the way, what the Chazal say is that that's what's going to happen in the end. God forbid, right? Nidai Bok, that... why do I say God forbid? It's going to happen, but God forbid that it should happen to us. That's what I'm saying. It's going to happen anyway. Whatever I say, it's going to happen. So what it says is that that when the Mashiach comes, right, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to redeem the Jewish people, so what he will do is he will raise up the level of the waters, Okay. And by the way, in nature, that it's very simple to do that. All you have to do is one thing. Just give one command. What's that command? To melt the waters which are on the poles, south and north. There's enough water over there, right, to drown the whole world. Why? Why is that, by the way? Why is it that when it's ice, when it's ice, it doesn't drown the world, but when it's going to be water, it's going to drown? What's the difference? You know what the difference is? In science, they teach you this, that the water has a bigger mass than the ice does. The ice is congealed, and the water is larger. So when the ice melts, it becomes larger, and therefore it's going to drown everything. That's what's going to happen. So, God forbid, God forbid on us. So, God forbid on the Jewish people. But what they say, the Chazal, is that when Mashiach comes, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, how is he going to take revenge on the sinners? He will drown them, it says. What does that mean, drown them? That he will increase the level of the water, and most of the lands will be drowned under the water. This is unbelievable. So why is it unbelievable?
Okay.
Why is it unbelievable?
Yeah.
Why is it unbelievable? Because it says in the Talmud that Eretz Israel is higher than all the other lands. It has a higher level. So what does that mean? That if you increase the level of the water in the whole world, the only land that will survive is the land of Israel, because it's higher, physically higher. So because of that, once everything drowns, the only place which will be saved is Eretz Israel. You understand? So it's like a natural thing. So therefore, these borders that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made for the water is a very crucial thing, because otherwise nothing would survive. By the way, there's a difference though, right? As we saw in the Parsha of Noach, right? We just read the Parsha of Noach this week, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu drowned the whole world. He killed off the whole human race, except one family. That's it. So, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after he drowned the whole world, he swore to Noach that he will never bring a flood like this again, ever. That's what he told him. There'll never be a flood like this. And you know what he made as a sign, right? When we see the rainbow, right? You know that the rainbow shows that what? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu remembers his promise that he gave. That he shouldn't drown the whole world. So, what does that mean? Why does he have to give us this rainbow? He remembers. He always going to remember. What? God's going to forget something? So what do we need to know? The fact that he's remembering it. What's the? Yeah. You're getting close to the point. The point is that when the Chazal say that when we see the rainbow, it's telling you something. It's giving you a message. What's the message? The message is that really the world deserves to be drowned out, and it deserves to be another flood coming. And the only reason why it's not is because of the promise that he made. Otherwise, if it wasn't for that promise, it should be another flood now, God forbid. Understand? So the rainbow is coming to tell you, listen, you better get your act together because the world really deserves to be drowned now. And the only thing that's saving you is my promise. That's what the rainbow is for. So when we see the rainbow, we have to make a bracha on the rainbow. There's a special blessing on the rainbow that we make, right? But they say, the Chazal, that when you make a blessing on the rainbow, you have to look at it, because if you don't see it, you can't make a blessing, So, but they say don't gaze at it too long. What's the reason why? You shouldn't gaze too much at the rainbow. Why? Because they say the rainbow has a Shekhinah inside there. The divine presence is there. So a person is not allowed to look at the divine presence. Too much. Once he looks at it, he should look away. Just take a look and.
Say the bracha.
Right, exactly. But not to gaze at it. We call that in Hebrew mitabonen. Somebody who gazes long time at something. So if that's the case, a person has to make the bracha, look at the rainbow quickly, and then look away because he's not allowed to gaze at it, as we said. So getting back to what we're saying, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though he promised, now the thing is like this: that HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised not to inundate the world, like we said in the time of Noach. But then it says, right, that it happened again. There was also in the generation of Enosh, there was also another flood, it says in the Chazal. Even though in the Bible we don't find this mentioned, but in the Chazal we do find it mentioned. So the question is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised that there's not going to be another flood. So then why was there another flood in the generation of Enosh that was after Noach? So the answer is, the Chazal say that even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised that there's not going to be another flood, but that means to drown the whole world. But if there's going to be a flood to drown parts of the world, that's exactly what happened. The flood during the time of Enosh flooded a large amount of the world, but not the whole world. That's what happened.
He promised I'm not going to make another flood.
Right, exactly, like this one. Right, exactly. And this was exactly, the Chazal say, right, this was exactly the problem with Paro. Paro.
Okay.
Right? What was the problem with Paro? Paro said, if we go into the sea to chase after the Jewish people, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not drown us. You know why? Because he promised not to bring another flood. You know what I mean? But he didn't realize that was only talking about, on the whole world. He didn't, he thought that was talking about any flood. So that wasn't what he meant. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu drowned them. And this mistake was also made by other goyim as well. As they say also, there's a story about Titus. Titus, who was the Roman Empire. Titus. So they say that Titus, what happened was that he went and he destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. He was the one who destroyed the second Beit HaMikdash. Right. So he went and he destroyed the second Beit HaMikdash, and then he's coming back with a ship to Rome, So all of a sudden there stirs up like a big storm in the sea, So he said, looks like their God is coming to get me, huh? Looks like he wants to get me over here. So he understood what was going on. So he said, that if, it seems like that this God, of the Jews, he only has power in the sea, because when I was over there in Israel, I destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, he couldn't do nothing to me, But now all of a sudden he's in the sea, So I see that his power is only in the sea, that's why he drowned the generation of Noach, and Enosh. Always he works with the sea, But when it comes, he says, so let him come, this God, their God, and fight with me on dry land, Let him come and fight with me when I get to Rome. Let's see what he can do over there. Then I'll give him a real battle. That's what he said. Pagan person, So what happens? So say the Chazal, this is in Masachet Gittin, in Tractate Gittin. So they say, right, that he came back to Rome, and they had a big celebration, about destruction. I beat them, I destroyed them, we swallowed them up, we crushed them. So they had a big party, and they even made that famous arch, right, the Arch of Titus. It's still there until this day, right? Yeah. You see it over there. You go, right, and what do you see over there? You see those pictures, on the arch of them taking out the kelim from Bet HaMikdash, the menorah and all these things, removing, and succeeding in destroying everything. It's still there until this day. So, and why do they make it? To celebrate, the victory over the Jewish people. So they say that what happened was the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Rasha, you are a Rasha, big Rasha, and you're the son also of a Rasha, because your father was also a Rasha, and you're the great-great-grandson of Esav, a Rasha. He was from Esav, Titos. He was from Amalek. So Titos was from Esav. So he said, you are the son of Esav, a Rasha. So he says, you now invited me to come and wage war with you on the dry land. So I'll teach you a lesson now. I'm going to teach you a lesson. So what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do to him? He says, I'm going to make war with you with the tiniest creature that I can find, that I have. What was that? The mosquito. He says, I'm going to take the mosquito. I'm going to wage war with you with a mosquito and beat you with that. And then let's see how powerful you are. So what happened was that Titos went inside of him, this mosquito, inside his ear, and went inside his brain. And this mosquito started to eat his brain, started to knock and eat. And he was going crazy, because it was giving him a big headache and all this, getting like migraines and, whatever. So, he was going out of his mind. He said, looks like, he got me over here, he got me over there and there. He understood what was going on. So what happened was that this suffering was going on for a long time. He couldn't do nothing to alleviate the suffering that he had from this mosquito. So in the end, he passed by accident, by chance, a smith that was, knocking, like the smith does, right? He has a hammer, and he knocks on the metal, to shape things, So this guy happened to be Jewish, the smith. So he was knocking, and when he heard the knocking of the smith, so the pain from that mosquito stopped. So he realized, that when there's knocking going on, so then the pain stops, So what he did was, he took this Jewish smith, he told him, he says, listen, I'll pay you salary, come to my palace, and knock there all the time. I want you to knock there all the time. That's what happened. So he told him knock all the time, and all the time that he was knocking, so he was right. That's when it was stopped, right? So getting back to what we're saying, that Kadosh Baruch Hu, right, made the waters, as we said. So meaning what? In the time of Mashiach also, that's what he's going to do. He's going to flood the world, just like he did in the generation of Enosh, but there will be parts of the world that will be saved, right? Like Eretz Israel, because it's higher than the other lands. So therefore Eretz Israel will be spared, but the other places will not be spared. So, this is what's going to happen. That's what the Chazal say. It's an amazing, the Midrash says so. Okay.
So
it's going to drown.
To run to Eretz Israel?
Yeah, we should run, right, that's true.
I'm serious, I'm not being...
I want to tell you a funny story, that one time I was in Israel, so we had a certain get-together over there, some kind of a meeting, whatever. There was an occasion that, we were in yeshiva there, Rav Yosef, so he was a rabbi. So they had members of the Bukharian community, the leaders, who came there from Queens to speak over there, So they wanted to tell the community over there what they're doing, here in Queens, to build the community. They're building shuls, they're building mikvaot, they're building yeshivot, all these things, So he came, this Gabbai, one of the Gabbaim over here. I know the guy. So he comes over there, I see him, I know him. So he was one of the Gabbaim on 71st Avenue, the shul over there, in the old one, before they built the new one. So he comes over there and he starts speaking, and Rav is sitting there, he's also there. So he starts telling him, we're building this, he's proud of what he was doing. Right. So the rabbi's listening to this, and whatever. So about a half a minute they listened, and then all of a sudden he stops him, says, stop right there. So he says, what happened? So he tells him just 3 words. He says, come to Eretz Israel. So I told him, in other words, what you think you're doing over there, is not really the right thing. You got to come over here. And this is the way the rabbi was. His attitude was, by the way, that whoever can come should come. Whoever can come, whoever can do it. Sometimes people cannot come. Sometimes it's not possible, whatever. But if it is possible, definitely the rabbi's attitude was that they should. I'm not trying to tell you, by the way, that it's an obligation to go today. Because this is...
When you say to go visit, to go live?
To live there. Yeah, to live there. Because the truth is that there is a dispute, machloket, between two big rabbis, the Chazon Ish and the Moshe Feinstein. Chazon Ish says that it's like an obligation to go, even in our times. And Moshe Feinstein says it's just a mitzvah. In other words, it's optional. If you want to do the mitzvah, optionally you can go if you want, but not obligation. That's what. So two different rabbis. So what's the reason? Because the truth is that if you look in the books, if you look in the books of the former authorities, the Rishonim, they write that it's a big mitzvah to live in Eretz Israel. Meaning what? That we're commanded to do so, and it's written in the Bible, right? It says there we have to go there and live there. So then the question is, what changed today? Why today is different? The reason it's different is because today the Bet HaMikdash is not existing. We don't have Bet HaMikdash. We don't have most of the Jewish people living there. Maybe we do nowadays. Now maybe it's possible. It's about half and half. Half there, half here, whatever. Half in diaspora, half in Israel. I think they say now they have about 7 million Jews there. But some of them may be fake, Now some of them are not really Jewish. Anyway, so the mitzvah of Eretz Israel, now it's a dispute whether in our time, when the Bet HaMikdash is not built, whether it's an obligation to be here or it's just optional. This is the two different rabbis say two different things. But anyway, everybody agrees that if you can do it, it's good, very good thing to do, right? And you'll definitely gain from being there. Okay, so let's go on. So then he goes and says, "Vayomer Elohim tadsheh haaretz deshe esed mazriah zera etz pri oseh pri lemino asher zar'o bo al haaretz vayichem." So it says, right, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the grass, the herbs, and all these things, right, the seeds that are in the herbs and the grass, and all these things were created, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because He wanted there should be vegetation and herbage on the ground, right? Why? Because this is how most of the creations subsist on these things, for their diet, right? And the truth is, right, in the beginning, also mankind was eating also only herbs and vegetation, because it wasn't allowed to eat meat.
Now, when you say mankind, you're talking about Adam and Eve?
Right, and all their children, right, all their children, until the generation of Noach, right? As we know, that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam HaRishon, He told them, you can eat all the herbage, that you want, but He didn't give him permission to eat meat. So this permission to eat meat was given at the time of Noach, right? As we see over there.
After the great flood.
Right. Once the flood occurred, and they came out of the ark, so then he gave them permission to eat meat. And before that, it wasn't allowed to eat meat. Let's go on.
Let me interrupt you.
Yes.
Before Noah, the people were sinning, right? They were sinning.
Sure, it was big sinners, big time.
So that's contradictory. They listened to that commandment not to eat meat, but they didn't listen to any other commandments that Hashem told them?
Good question. So the truth is that it could be that they were also sinning with that, but we really don't know, to be honest with you, because I don't see any documentation about that they spoke about that particular sin. It could be that they didn't do it. It's possible. You know why? Because it could be that it was something taboo to them. Something which was like.
Everything else was not taboo, but the cow and making a barbecue.
Good question. It could be all right. It could be all right. It could be all right. By the way, I didn't really find myself, any documentation regarding that. So it's up in the air. It could be yes, could be no. Your guess is as good as mine. But the truth is that there are certain things that the Yetzer Hara, the inclination, has more. It's stronger, So it could be that the Yetzer Hara about this was not so strong in their times.
They had what to eat,
exactly. They were also very strong, so they didn't need to eat meat so much. Their bodies were much stronger, much more powerful. Like the truth is, if you really look at the animal, kingdom, at the animal world, the animals are much stronger than we are, and they eat only herbage, some of them, like the hippos, and the horses, they don't eat meat, but they're much stronger than we are. So you don't really need to, eat meat to be so strong. You know,
So they were not inclined to it.
yeah, just you have to,
Okay.
by us, by the humans, we derive from meat strength, but some of the animals don't need that. So, Kadosh Baruch Hu can change the nature of a person. They shouldn't have to need meat to eat meat. So it could be that by them, they didn't really see any need for that. It's possible, it is possible.
And all of those animals were roaming around?
Right. But the truth is that there was also big sins, regarding other things, obviously, there was huge sins, as the Chazal described, right? That were going on in those times. There was, colossal things going on. We don't have to get into it now, maybe.
They didn't know left and right. They slept around with everybody. They
Right.
smoked.
Not only that, but there was also theft, gezel.
They used to steal the minutest.
Right. It was just everything you could get your hands on. Basically, total lawlessness. Like anarchy. Anarchy. Total. Yeah. That's what it was in those times. There was no law and order. Basically, whatever they wanted to do, they did. And if you were lucky, you could maybe get a court case with some to get your money back, but only if you were very lucky. Otherwise, it wasn't. It seems like there wasn't enough control. There wasn't enough.
When the Hashem says, okay, let's get to Noach later. Go ahead.
Okay. So it says, "Vayi erev, vayi boker, yom shlishi." Now we have the third
Why
day.
does it say always Vayi erev, Vayi boker? And it was evening, and it was.
So the Chazal say that this teaches you something. That according to the Judaism, the beginning of the day is the night, right? So that's why I'm telling you, Vayi erev, vayi boker. Erev is first, right? Erev is night. Erev is evening. So we learn from there that the Jewish day starts at night, and there is a lot of interesting issues that that arise from this, by the Jewish people, because in other words, let's say there's a certain mitzvah, you can only do a certain day, So our day starts at night. So sometimes you can start doing that mitzvah at night. But by the Goyim, if you look at the Goyish calendar, by them, that was yesterday. By us, it's today. So it's not the same thing. Not exactly the same thing. ויאמר אלוהים יהי מאורות בהרכי השמיים להבדיל בין היום ובין הלילה והיו לאותות ולמועדים ולימים ושנים. So he says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the stars and the planets in order to give signs and to give structure, in terms of calendar structure to the world. What does that mean? That by us, by the human beings, we know what day it is and what year it is, by looking at the stars. We see what's going on. Because in those days they didn't have clocks. They didn't have these things. These contraptions that tell you what time it is and what day it is. So the only way they knew was by looking at the stars. By looking at them. So go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, Sean. Yes, Sean. What's up? No, I'm in the show. What is it? Do you need anything? Okay. Tell me, you want to be picked up?
Yeah, come on.
Okay, come on. Got it.
When you gotta go?
No, I'm not going to.
Okay. So it's saying that what? That these stars, that was the only way you could tell what was going on in those days. What day it is, what month it is, what year it is, all these things. The people, how do they know? By the stars, by the sun, the motion of the sun, by the moon, right? As you know, that we, the Jewish people, go by the moon calendar, lunar calendar, and they go by the solar calendar, But either way, we're both using the movement of the stars and the constellations in order to understand what the date is, what the time is, what all these things that we learn through the stars. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave these things, the stars and the planets, in order that we should know, right, what's going on in the world and what time it is and what day it is and what month it is and what year it is. That's the way it is. And these things have a lot of significance, by the way. The stars also, Chazal teach us, right, as it says in the Sefer, in the book, Derech Hashem, that we're supposed to be, maybe later on we'll start doing that too. Mm-hmm. But it says over there that really, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way he brings influence into this world, in other words, he wants to have in this world certain events that are going on, certain decrees, certain influence, certain things which are good, certain things which are not good. The way he brings that into the world is through the influence of the stars. So the stars have a lot of influence on us. It has a lot of power. As the Chazal say, right, the Talmud says, right, that even one blade of grass doesn't grow if HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't command. What does that mean? That he has a star. Every blade of grass has a star that tells that blade of grass what to do, how to grow. So everything, all the nature is functioning through the influence of the stars. So you see from there that the creation of the stars is a very, very, very important thing. And what we see in our telescopes over here, even the best telescopes that we have, is just the tip of the iceberg of what really there is in the sky, in the heavens. The constellations are so vast and so huge, right, that we don't have the power to see or even imagine what's going on there. And all these things are there for us, as the Chazal say, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created everything for Am Yisrael, for the people, So all these stars, they're not just there, random, by chance, or something. Some people think, there's life in outer space, all these things. The truth is, right, that according to logic, Torah logic, probably there is no life in outer space. You know why? You have to use your head and understand why. Okay. Because the whole point of these stars is not that there should be life there, but it's coming to make our life different, to affect our life. Okay, that's the whole point,
That's the stars, but that's not the planets.
Right.
Maybe he created somewhere another planet that is...
Right, that's true, but even the planets also are like that. The planets are also, they have certain effects in Mazal.
Okay,
right? To give you an example, by the way, a very strong example. As they say, right, the Mekubalim, they say that there's one planet in our hemisphere, right, which is called Saturn. As you know, right? Yeah. Saturn, the one with the rings.
Rings.
Right. Yeah. The ring one. So that it's not a coincidence, by the way. They call it Saturn. What word do you see in there, Saturn?
Shabbat.
Saturday.
Yeah, Shabbat, Saturday.
Right? And so why is it called that? What's the reason? That's one question, right? Also, if you look in Hebrew, how do you say in Hebrew Saturn? Shabbatai. Also Shabbat, you see it's there. So either language has the same connotation. Okay. Right? So what's the reason for that? So they say the Chazal that this planet, Shabbatai, Saturn, influences this world on Shabbat. And this is why it's called Shabbatai. Okay. It's called Shabbatai. So what does that mean for us? By the way, they say the Chazal that this planet, Shabbatai, Saturn, is the worst mazal. It's like the most terrible luck that there is. So meaning what? That Shabbat is not really a fortunate day. It's not really a lucky day. Just the opposite. It's a very unlucky day.
Depending what you're doing.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you're right. It's true what you're saying. Let's explain what that means. Okay. What that means is that the planet Shabbatai, Saturn, it has a very negative influence. And it causes damage. It causes just the opposite of success, right? Failure and tragedy. That's what it is. It's all darkness. That's what they say, the Chazal. So if that's the case, then why do we love Shabbat so much? We the Jewish people, we live for Shabbat. So then why should be just the opposite, right? We should be running away from Shabbat. Why are we looking forward to Shabbat? Every weekday, right? All weekdays we're doing for Shabbat. We're buying this for Shabbat. We're buying this going to the supermarket for Shabbat. Buying this for Shabbat. We're always getting ready for Shabbat. Cleaning the house for Shabbat. Doing everything for Shabbat. So then, but this is the worst day of the week. according to astrology, it's the worst day. So the answer is that the Chazal tell us that the Saturday is the worst day out of the week. That's true. But what we do, that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us Shabbat. What does that mean? To keep Shabbat. So when a person keeps Shabbat, what is he really doing? As they say the Chazal, right, that the Jewish people are above Mazal. They're above luck. In other words, they have a power by the merit of their mitzvot to go above the luck, the constellations, the fortune. How do we do that? By keeping Shabbat, by keeping the laws of Shabbat. What we do is we elevate ourselves above the mazal, and therefore the mazal can't get us, it can't harm us. You understand? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu did us a big favor to give us the Shabbat, the laws of Shabbat. Why? By keeping Shabbat, we're keeping out of trouble from that mazal or Shabbatai, right, which is all darkness and destruction. That's what it is. Now, interesting thing is that they say, by the way, the Chazal, I heard from one of the big rabbis, his name is Rabbi Tzafi, he said something interesting. He said this is the reason, because Shabbat is such a bad mazal, that a person who works on Shabbat, he's actually harming his parnasa. He's harming his income. Why? Because since the mazal is dead on Shabbat, so all the money he's making on Shabbat and all that, that energy is making him go down the tubes. That's what it's doing. So all the money that he profits on Shabbat, it has a negative effect. So this rabbi, he said, he's a Kabbalist, so he must know what he's talking about. He said to us that a person who works on Shabbat, in the end, he's going to lose everything. In other words, everything is going to go down the tubes because of the, So that's the worst thing a person can do for his parnasah is to work around Shabbat. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu did us a big favor by giving us Shabbat that we can be above the mazal. On the other hand, the goyim, right, it's just the opposite. It says in the Talmud that a goy who keeps Shabbat hayav mitah.
Yeah.
What does that mean? He's liable to death, right? So meaning what? That they don't have access to that gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. It's a special gift only, right? Beni u'ben Israel. It's only between us and him. But the goyim cannot get to that level. They're not allowed. And if they do, we kill them. We don't kill anybody. But we're saying, right? If there was, so if there was a situation like that, it could be possible. So therefore, a goy is not allowed to keep Shabbat. Because it's a private club. The Jewish people, right? Members only, exactly. Why is that? What's the reason why we had this, privilege of being members in this club? The reason is because we accepted the Torah, without asking questions. Naaseh v'nishma, right? We said that Kadosh Baruch Hu, yeah, right. In other words, we'll see what's there, but now we'll take it. We'll take it. Give it. Give me. Write it out write me a receipt, and then we'll see what's going on there. But I believe you. Don't worry. I trust you. Don't worry. Let me take it now. I'll buy it now. But when Kadosh Baruch Hu came to the goyim, it was just the opposite, right? They said, what's in there? When he offered it to them, he offered to all the goyim. Before he offered to Israel, he offered to all the 70 nations. Esav, Ishmael, and all the other nations as well. So he came to them and he said, you want it? You want my Torah? They said, what's in there? So Kadosh Baruch Hu, said to Esav, he said to Bnei Esav, to the children of Esav, it says, don't murder, don't kill. So they said, we cannot accept that, because we're killers, that's our instinct, Yadayim Yadei Esav,
Yeah.
So we'll do everything with our hands, we kill, you cannot tell us that.
When you say he came to children of Esav, how did he actually come?
Just like he came to us. He came to Har Sinai, came down with smoke and fire and all these things,
Okay.
You want it?
Yeah, but he brought us out from Mitzrayim, and
right.
he gave it to us.
Right, but those nations were in their place, so he went to their place, where they live. Esav was living right in the south of Eretz Israel.
That you're talking about before the Pharaoh's time or after the Pharaoh?
When they were in the desert, the Jews.
When we were brought out.
Right. That was the time. He offered to everybody.
Already it's understood that we are getting the gift.
Right, but before we got it, he went to all the other nations first, to cut a deal. As you said, right, you go to the pastors, so you don't go to the rabbis. So first he went to the pastors, you understand? Okay. That's what happened.
So he brought us out.
Yeah.
He brought us out.
Right.
Came to this Har Sinai.
Right.
Then he went around to all the other nations.
Right.
Offered it,
right.
Nobody
they refused.
Accepted it.
Yes.
And then he gave back to us.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to understand.
That's the way it was. So what happened was that he went to the Bnei Esav, he went to children of Esav. He said, you want it? So they said, what does it say in there? Don't murder, don't kill. No, we're murderers, that's how we live our lives, right? Because it says, right, when Yaakov Avinu, when Yitzhak Avinu blessed Esav, what did he say, right? He said that you're going to be a warrior. That's how he blessed him, So everything, Yadayim Yadei Esav, everything is going to be, you're going to be succeeding in wars. So therefore they said, we're warriors. You're telling us don't kill? That's how we live. That's our livelihood. You're trying to take away our livelihood? We don't want it, so I'm sorry. That's what they said. So then he went to the Arabs, Bnei Ishmael, Ishmaelim. And he asked them, do you want the Torah or you don't want the Torah? They said, what's written in there? So he said, don't steal. He said, we're the biggest thieves, we steal every day, You like to say, the man of steel, we're man of steel, We steal every day. Cannot be like this, That, like it says, right, the blessing of Ishmael, right, when Kadosh Baruch Hu, Ishmael was supposed to be born, the father of the Arabs, what do you say, right? Yado bakol, v'yad kol bo, right? Yado bakol, what does that mean? Yado bakol, that he's stealing, His hand is everywhere. In other words, his hands are reaching everywhere and stealing.
Ishmael was Abraham's son.
Right.
The first
Yes.
one.
Yes.
From Agar.
The first one. Right. Exactly.
From Agar.
So Ishmael was the forefather of the Arabs. So he said, Yadayim Yadei Esav, right? And Ishmael, Yado Bakol. Everything he takes, he grabs. You know. They say, by the way, you want to hear a funny story? This is a true story, by the way. This is not. It's not a fake. You remember our friend Arafat, right? You remember Arafat?
Sure.
He was a very colorful character, right? Very colorful. So this guy, what happened was that one of the kings of the Arab countries, wealthy countries, they have a lot of oil and everything. So he bought him a private jet for Arafat, got him a private jet. So they say that Arafat used to fly everywhere, to meet with all the leaders. He used to fly with that jet, and he had a pilot, and the pilot was American guy, American guy, hired American guy. So after he lost that job, I guess when Arafat died or whatever, so they interviewed him, this pilot, to ask him what was it like to be the pilot of Arafat, So he told over some very interesting stories. One of them was, I don't want to tell you all the stories, we don't have time now. You have to pick up your son, but
No,
okay, it's fine. Okay. Very good, very
My wife
good.
is
So anyway, he tells him like this. He says, "Listen, we used to go to hotels, we used to stop at certain places, and they would go into a hotel to stay there, to lodge, right?" So he said that when they would leave the hotel, you know what they would do? They would come into the plane with their baggage, right, with their suitcases.
Yeah.
And once I would take off, from the runway and get into the air. So he says their favorite thing was like this, they would open up the baggage, and they had towels that they stole from the hotels, and they were bragging, like laughing, oh, you see, I stole, these towels, I got them, we got them, So they were so happy that they stole the towels. Understand?
Souvenir.
Right, souvenir, right, exactly. So Yadov Bakol, in other words, the whatever the Torah says was fulfilled. And Arafat also, right? That he was, they love to steal just for the fun of it, And this is why in their countries, many of their countries, what the punishment is for somebody who steals? They cut off his arm. Why? Because they have to have very strong deterrent, in order to prevent them. Because otherwise they all, they're grabbing everything they can. That's the way it is. Very good. So let's go on.
I'm fine with the time. How you doing with the time? That's more important right now.
If you want, we can stop here or go another, until 8:30. Whatever you want.
Whatever you want. I'm fine with the time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let's go on a little bit more. Since you're so chilled, so I got to give you some more. You're chilly. Okay. So it says, "Vayomer Elohim Ehyeh me'orot v'rakia." We did this. Now let's go to the next one.
So he created in 6 days. Let's skip a little bit. In 6 days, he created the whole 9 yards.
Yes,
let's get to Adam and Eve.
Very good.
Let's skip that.
Okay. I got you.
My main point is I want to digress a little bit to last week. If he would have created a second half for the Satan, we wouldn't have this balagan today. We would have all been in heaven. Or he wouldn't have created the snake at all, we still would have been there. That's my whole point.
Yes. But
let's take another step. I was thinking about it. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, or I'm contemplating. I don't know. Maybe he created everything to test us, what we are, who we are.
Right. That's for sure.
What we are, who we are.
That's for sure.
But yet everything is predestined, so he knows exactly what we are and who we are.
Yes.
But then we have a free choice, so how can we have a free choice when everything is predestined?
But what you're asking, by the way, the Rambam mentions this, in his book, Mishneh Torah. And
pardon me, it's like, what came first, chicken or the egg?
Right, exactly. So he says that this is one of the most complicated questions that there is, in our world. How is it, on the one hand, that Kadosh Baruch Hu knows the future, he knows everything which is going to happen, and on the other hand, we have free choice. So he says, this is one of the big secrets of the world, he says, that it's very, very deep. He says, and we cannot even get to the bottom of it, He says, something very, very, very deep. But anyway, getting back to what we're saying, starting a new topic now, right?
Adam and Eve.
Right, Adam and Eve. So the thing is like this. Kadosh Baruch Hu now creates Adam and Chava.
But again, everything till now, as far as I understand, was created by his mouth.
Yes.
By his words.
Yes.
How did he create Adam?
Manually? Same thing.
Like
Same
what he
thing,
said.
same thing.
Because he conferred with his angels. Let's create.
Right.
And that teaches us that when we are about to make a big important decision, we should confer with others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, anava, right. Humility, yes.
Yeah. To okay.
Very good,
respect others
very
also. I remember it, whatever.
Beautiful.
The question is that
Yeah.
he created Adam again. He just said, "Let there be man from the sand," and the Adam was composed, or he just manually made him.
Well, as we said, right, it was all done by speech, but actually, he was made from the earth, so, from earth and water. Said so, it was done. Right.
It was not sculpting.
Right. It wasn't like a sculptor, like does with his hands, smooths out and just
Okay.
no, not like
said
that.
it, he was
Right,
created.
right.
Okay.
But they say figuratively speaking, that he was the creation of his hands. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have hands. It's not what he means. It's just figurative.
Figurative.
Right. That's what it is. Yeah. Obviously, he doesn't have any hands. So there's nothing to do with hands, it's the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right. So says the Rambam that one of the most important things that a person has to believe, one of his principles, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has no body, has no physical body. Right. It's a spirit. Right. Exactly. So God, says the Rambam, if a person believes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a body, he says he has no chelek in olam haba. He has no portion in the world to come.
There are too many things that we don't have.
Right, too many things, right?
We don't have chelek be'olam.
So, and let me tell you a funny story. By the way, why is that? What's the reason? Because this is considered to be like a person, he's a denier. In other words, he thinks that God is some kind of a physical being. My Father in heaven. My Father. He's your Father. I mean, yes, He is our Father. He created us, but He's not a physical Father. That's not, you have to understand what that means, right? All these things when they say the work of His hands. Right, all these things, right? That doesn't mean that actually he has hands, right?
Okay.
So it says in Rambam that a person has to believe that the Hakadosh Baruch Hu is not physical being, because if you do, you're like totally messing up what the creation is all about. You don't understand what's going on.
It's not a physical being. It's not being.
So it says the Rambam that if you believe that, you have no chelek olam haba.
Okay.
So it comes now. There's another rabbi who has a commentary on the Rambam. His name is Ravad. Ravad, Ravad. He was also from Spain. He was also Spanish. So he has a famous commentary on the Rambam, So he argues with the Rambam a lot. So here comes the Ravad and argues with the Rambam. He says that don't try to say this thing, that a person who doesn't believe in that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he believes that he has a body, he has no. Okay, it's true. It's not true. It's not true that that he has a body, and it's a big mistake, and it's very foolish to say that. But don't say he has no chelek olam haba. He's on your side, right? Why is that? So he says that. It's just like a common mistake that people have. In other words, it's a common, error. No, they don't mean bad when they think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a body. It's just it's ignorance.
No, I'm not saying that he has a body.
You understand? Right.
It's a spirit beyond our comprehension.
It's ignorance. That's what it is. It's ignorance.
Okay.
You understand?
No,
so it's ignorance. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, it's too many things that we do. We don't have chelek be'olam haba. So I don't.
Okay, right. That's too many things. Right. So says the Ravad, he wants to eliminate this one. You understand? So he's on your side.
Okay.
So says the Ravad, right? Since it's a person, it's just innocent mistake that a person is making. How can you say that he has no chelek olam haba? He's not doing it on purpose. To be a sinner, to rebel. He's just a simple human being. Doesn't understand these things. Not educated. Yeah, somewhat.
But on the other hand, the Christians believe that what's his name was their father. So maybe that's what he meant. That if you believe in that statue, you have no.
Right. That's another. Yeah. Now we got to give a different shear on that one. That's a different time. That's a whole story in itself, right? So getting back to what we're saying, says that Avad that he does have a chelek olam haba. If he says that, he does have a portion in the world to come.
Good. I get something.
So
the Adam, what's his name? Yeah. Adam was created.
Right. So now I just want to tell you something really funny. What's the funny thing here? That they say, Moreno Rabbeinu, my Rabbi, Rav Vadia, he told us, Rav Vadia Yosef, he told us that there's a story brought down in the Hasidic writings, also in the Kabbalistic writings, regarding this dispute that was between the Rambam and the Ravad. These were two big rabbis, by the way, two big rabbis, two of the biggest rabbis. So they say that when the Ravad, when the Rambam said that they have no portion in the world to come, so what happened was that all those souls that were in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, and they were, in a good place, so they went and they took them out, they kicked them out of there. All the ones who didn't believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was a spiritual being. They thought he was physical. So after the Rambam said so, they went and they threw them out of there. They said,
where'd they go?
They said they put them, in a different place, whatever. Maybe Geinam, you know. So they put him in hell. So what happened was that they took them out. They said, "Listen, you got to get out of here," because the Rambam said, there's a rabbi over there in the world over there, down on earth. He said that you have no chelik Rambam, so get out. So they say that what happened was that they kicked him out, and then all of a sudden, when the Ravad came and said what he said, they brought him back in. Right? They said, "Now you can come back in." Because there's another rabbi, who came and argued with him, and now you can come back in. So what do we learn from there? We learn from here a very, very strong principle in Torah, right? Which is what? That, as they said, right, the Chazal, Lo b'shamayim. Once the Torah was given on Har Sinai, so now who decides what's the halacha? The sages decide. The rabbis decide. They're the ones who decide. And whatever they decide, that's exactly what happens in heaven. In other words, whatever they decide happens over here, happens over there, happens everywhere. Whatever they say, so it's Lo b'shamayim. Now, right, the matters of Torah are not decided in the sky, in the heavens. They're decided here. The rabbis decide what's permitted, what's not permitted. If he has a portion, he doesn't have a portion. All these things are decided in here, right? So you see the power of the rabbis. The power. The rabbis were given the power now. After the Torah was given, they decide what's going to be in the Torah. They decide what's allowed. They decide what's not allowed.
You're not talking about this time, Rabbi. You're talking about those times.
Also now, right? Every generation has its leaders. So every generation, the leading rabbis, they decide what's allowed, what's not allowed, what is good, what's not good, what's positive, what's negative, all these things. And whatever they say, that's the halacha. That's the way. And they say in Shemaim because they said down there, the rabbis, that this is the way it is. That's the way it is. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them the power, the rabbis, to make these decisions. It's unbelievable. So you see from there, by the way, that the Jewish people, and their rabbis, we are the central theme of the whole world. In other words, we decide what goes on. It's our decision. Because the Torah is a blueprint of the world. It says in the right. We're talking about now creation, right? So it says in the Zohar, it says in the Talmud, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. How did he create the world? In other words, what was his blueprint? So he says he looked in the Torah and he created the world. So meaning what? That the world is created from the blueprint of the Torah.
What's the Torah?
This is the question that I was asked, before last week. That they asked me this question.
Don't tell me the 5 books and
the 5 books, right, all these things, right. So there is an answer to that, right? The answer is like this: that there is Torah and there's Torah. What does that mean?
There's Torah, reading Torah.
What does that mean? It means that the real Torah that was created by Kadosh Baruch Hu, that's a spiritual entity. It's not a physical thing. It's not a piece of leather, that you write on. That's not really the Torah, right? So what is really the Torah? The Torah is the knowledge, the secrets that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has, that those beautiful, the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's really the Torah, and that's something which the angels were studying, in heaven with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But then when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, he said, I also want to give the Torah to the world as well. In other words, not only should it be in heaven, also it should be down there. And they're the ones who decide, what's allowed, what's not allowed. So what happened was that the angels, asked the question to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They complained about this. They said, how can you take such a spiritual thing like the Torah and give it to these earthly people, who go to the bathroom, excuse the expression, and they go do what they have to do there. What does it have to do one with the other? This is totally spiritual, and these are they're like animals. These people, they have a physical body. So you know what the answer was, right? The Chazal say the answer was, listen, you shouldn't think that the Torah is only for you angels to play around with over here and enjoy the wisdom of the Torah, because it says in the Torah, don't eat pork. It says in the Torah, right? Don't go with a woman who's not pure. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. This is all these things. Are they shaykh to you? Does it relate to an angel?
Yeah.
They don't apply to you. Okay. So therefore, the Torah also applies to the lower worlds. So meaning what? That there's also Torah in the lower worlds that I can give them, and they also can use it to live their life over there. It's not only for you. So what's the difference? The difference is that the Torah that we have is clothed, that spiritual entity, which is the Torah, is clothed in a physical, body. That's what we have, the Sefer Torah that we have over there,
Yeah. Okay, the scrolls.
That's what we have. But that physical covering that we're using for the Torah is just the outer layer. Really, the inner layer of the Torah is more spiritual, and its secrets and its wisdom. It's not a physical thing. So therefore, in this world, the Torah is this, what we have over here in the Aron HaKodesh, right? But really, the Torah is much, much, deeper than that. The real Torah is the inner Torah, But we need to have the Torah in a physical form. By the way, they say, right, that everything that comes to this world, even if it's a totally spiritual, thing, it has to take some physical form. In other words, the law of this world is, when you come here, you got to take on a body. You have to take on a body, some kind of body. So that's why they say, right, the Zohar says something amazing. The Zohar says that when an angel comes down to this world, even though he's a totally spiritual being, he has to take on a body. He has to have a body, Yeah. You can't come here without clothing. The clothing of this world is a body, So therefore, when an angel comes here, he has to come with a body. And this is why when the big tzaddikim, they used to see an angel, they see a body, They don't see just something, some light, They see a body. They see it. So, it's a body there, So how can it be a body? You're an angel. What? You have a body? You have no body. So the answer is that when you come here, you must put on the clothing. You have to wear the proper clothing. Like they say, wear proper attire. You got to put proper attire. Exactly. Every place needs a proper attire. So the proper attire also for the Torah as well. It's the same thing. When the Torah comes here, it needs a clothing. It needs an outer layer, the clothing. And this is what we have. This is exactly what we have. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. So the thing is that besides that, there's also another element, which is that in Olam Hazeh, because of the sin of Adam Rishon, right? We're going to talk about that now, right? The sin of Adam Rishon, and also because the sin of the Egel, right, that the Jews did in the desert when they worshipped the calf, right? By the way, these two things are very, very similar. These two sins, because I'll tell you what the connection is. They say that when Adam Rishon was created, he was created perfect, as we said last week, right? We talked about that. He had no blemish, no nothing. Everything was.
He wasn't even circumcised.
Crème de la crème, He was born circumcised, yeah. So, when he sinned, the world fell down, he fell down, and the whole world fell down. They say that when the Jewish people left Mitzrayim, they got to the level of Adam Rishon when he was created. In other words, they got back to that level. That level was recreated again, was re-achieved again.
Each one was...
Right, exactly. The Jewish people became, each one of them, like Adam Rishon. When he was created. Very high level. So what happened was that when they received the Torah, each one of them got a crown. It's a spiritual thing,
Yeah.
A spiritual crown. So each one was like looking like, some kind of a, godly, being, You would see him, you would think, oh my God, You can't even look at the guy. He's got so much light coming out of him. Each one was created like that. So, what happened was that when they did the sin of the egel, of the calf, again they fell down. The same way that Adam Rishon fell down, they also fell down. You understand? So they lost their crowns, they lost everything. So they went back to scratch. Starting from scratch again. And now, when we got to Mashiach, we also have to come back to that level again. That's our goal. You understand? If we don't, so then we cannot finish our job over here.
So before Mashiach comes, we're going to get to that level.
We have to.
After that.
It has to be really during his coming. We have to get that level. During his coming, yeah. Because he's going to help that. He's going to catalyze that process. You know what I mean?
As far as I understand, every generation has its Mashiach. But
yes, potential Mashiach.
Potential Mashiach. Not even a Mashiach.
Right, it's a potential. What does that mean? That he's enough of a tzaddik, this guy,
be a Mashiach,
that he can get the soul of Mashiach in him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will implant the soul of Mashiach in his body, and he will be the Mashiach. That's what it means.
He has to be born like that?
Well, he has to be from...
He could be just a tzaddik walking down the street and all of a sudden the soul comes in.
In order to be a really Mashiach, he has to be from a certain family, as we know, right?
We know
so,
David.
Yeah, right, David, exactly. So, that's also a prerequisite, obviously.
Okay. So, the person has to be born like that, a Mashiach?
He has to, in order to be really the Mashiach, he has to be born from that family.
Okay, he's born from that family.
But sometimes what happens is that the person is not born from that family, but because he's such a tzaddik, So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him the soul of Mashiach ben Yosef. Mashiach, right, in order that he should save the Jewish people from some kind of a downfall. He could lift them up. Even though he's not really the final Mashiach. But he's like a temporary Mashiach that he's going to save the Jewish people from some kind of a calamity, some kind of a downturn, That's also, it's possible. So a person like that doesn't have to be from the family of Mashiach. It could be that he's just a big tzaddik, big rabbi. And because he's such a big tzaddik, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him that power, that soul, that's
beautiful.
It's a temporary Mashiach. Temporary.
So temporary Mashiach could be born in any family.
Right.
He could be born, or he could be walking down the street, and all of a sudden the soul comes in.
Yeah, I mean,
Because it's a temporary Mashiach.
Right. Yeah.
Now let's take the real Mashiach. He has to be born as a Mashiach.
He has to be born from that family. Right, from that family, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that we have plenty of members from that family.
By the way, there was many generations where they were almost killed off. It's brought down in the Bible. And there was certain generations where there's only one left, and that one also almost died.
But
So meaning what? Yeah, there's still like
Okay,
it has to be.
There has to be a lot.
Yeah,
So the kid is born in that family.
yeah.
He has to be born as a Mashiach, or he can grow.
No,
up
he has to
and
earn
then-
that. He has to earn that title.
He has to earn it.
Yeah.
And that would be a tzaddik.
Right, and do all the things that Mashiach has to do. Save the Jewish people. Bring them out of Galut. All these things. Yeah.
Because I heard it differently. Again, I'm not arguing with your point.
Yeah.
Okay? That once he is born,
Yeah.
everybody will know that the Mashiach is here.
It's not true. And you can see, by the way, that from Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu, nobody knew who he was until he was 80 years old.
Okay.
Understand? They say, by the way, the Chazal, that Mashiach is going to be the same also. When he's born, they're not going to know who he is.
Okay.
And he's not going to become famous until he gets old. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu, So they say, also the Chazal, a different thing. They say that Mashiach, just like Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was born into the family of Paro, right? And he was in the royal court of Mitzrayim, which was the leading superpower at that time. Also, Mashiach will be born into also where the leading superpower is, and he will grow up in that court, in those royal circles. You understand? And he will come out of there little by little, grow and grow, become big, and he will sprout from that society, same like Moshe Rabbeinu. So meaning what? We're not talking about somebody who just, is born and gets a silver spoon in his mouth. He has to earn that,
But he's born in a silver spoon family.
That we need, right? We need that.
Okay.
We need that. Yeah.
So let him be born in the spirit. In this famous family.
Yeah.
And grow up as a tzaddik.
Right.
Wonderful. And then how do we know that he's the real Mashiach?
So the Rambam, answers that question. Right. The Rambam says that he has to do several things.
Mm-hmm.
He has to, first of all, number one, he says he has to be a tzaddik. He has to be a chacham. He has to be a person who, saves the Jewish people from the galut, brings them out of the, galut, brings them to Eretz Israel.
Another Moshe Rabbeinu.
Right, exactly. Yeah. A savior, a real savior. Yeah. That's what it has to be. Not just somebody who was a big tzaddik sitting in 770, something like that. We're not talking about that.
Well, okay.
You understand?
That's a different kind of.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
No problem.
You could be sitting in 770. You could be sitting 80 or 990. That doesn't make you Mashiach. You have to be in order to be Mashiach. You have to bring the Jewish people to Eretz Israel, not in Crown Heights. I mean, no offense, no offense, no offense intended. I'm just telling you, it has to be that way. It has to be that Mashiach is working to bring the Jews out of Galut and bring them to Eretz Israel. That's a part of the game.
Fine. Then let me interrupt
Yeah.
you one more.
Yeah.
So we had a Mashiach,
Right.
Moshe Rabbeinu.
Yeah. Right.
Correct?
He was a savior. Yeah. He was a savior. Yeah.
What's a Mashiach? Mashiach is a savior, basically.
Right. Yes.
He's
By the way, according to Zohar, he is Mashiach, Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, Mashiach is Moshe. Same guy.
Moshe Rabbeinu was born
Yeah.
in a high court. He saved the children of Israel, and he died.
Right.
He passed away. We don't know what happened to him. He walked up there.
Right.
It doesn't say. I don't think it says that he died.
It says in the Chazal what happened.
As far as I know,
Yeah.
I think in the Chumash it says that he went up there.
He went up there, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, gave him a very, it's called mitat neshika, right? That's the kiss of death.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's very easy death, very, very, very painless.
Okay.
Right? And then he buried him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu buried him.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu buried him.
Yeah.
So now we say that he's going to be the Mashiach.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's stop there for a minute. Let's go back to other religion.
Yeah.
They also believe that there was a Mashiach.
Right.
He was killed. He brought the people together. He was preaching the gospel of God.
Right. Right.
He was killed. And he's going to come back again to save the world.
Right. Yeah. Sounds good, no?
The same thing that we're saying.
Like those car guys, those pastor guys.
Fine.
So,
it's the same thing that basically that we're
so you
saying.
know, the truth is that this is a very fundamental question.
Don't misunderstand me. I'm not believing in their mission.
Yeah, you're devil's advocate. You're doing devil's advocate. But you know, I understand. The truth is that this is a very fundamental question what you're asking. And you know, when I was just starting out and studying Torah, I used to go to lectures, of a certain rabbi, and he gave us, probably the best answer that there is to that question, because it's always asked this question, So the answer that he gave us was like this. He said that, and it's really, really true, And by the way, then I heard this from other rabbis as well. He's not the only one. What I heard was that he said like this. He said that the Jewish people are not like the other religions. What's the difference? The difference is, the other religions, they claim to have some prophet or some, some divine being that came and gave them some kind of a thing. And, he was what he was, and he was a saint, and he was this. Okay. So the problem is that when you have a person like this, okay, so there are, just naturally speaking, some people are going to believe and some people are not going to believe. Because, there always are skeptics, and there always are fanatics, there's two camps, right? Fanatic and skeptics. So they're always going to be like that. So what happened was that when these two came, the Yeshu, they would call them, right? Yeshu, and then Muhammad, right? So we had these two guys. So what happened was that they were accepted by a certain group of people, but most of the people did not accept them, That's the truth, right? Like, Yeshu, he had followers, he had maybe it was hundreds of people, thousands of people, whatever. But the rest of the populace considered him to be a troublemaker, and they killed him. That's why they killed him, because he was making a lot of problems for them. The Romans hated him, the Jews hated him, so he was considered to be like a big troublemaker.
Okay.
The same thing with this Muhammad guy, that he was accepted by certain people. Most of the people did not accept him. So. But when it comes to the Jewish people, it's not the same thing. Why? Because the Jewish people, Kadosh Baruch Hu took the whole nation out from Mitzrayim, and the whole world saw that. It's not something which is denied by anybody. It's an event, right, that everybody knows that's true. Nobody denies that. No religion denies that. Yeah. Because it's a fact.
It's a fact.
Yeah, it's a fact. It's a historical fact. Okay. So what happened was that the Jews left Mitzrayim, and they got the Torah. Nobody denies that either. All the religions accept that, right? And the whole Jewish people saw that. They witnessed that. So meaning what? We had millions of witnesses there. Because even though it says, right, that 600,000 people left Mitzrayim, but that was just the soldiers, But there was also the women and the children and the elderly that were not counted in that number. So there was probably 2-3 million people there, They all saw that. So meaning our religion is, something which is testified to by the whole nation, by the whole world. Their religion is something which is some kind of a passing fad, that came, by some guy, and, he was accepted by some didn't accept him. It's much different, you understand? It's not the same thing at all. It's really way, way, way different, So my battery's dying. So it's okay, it doesn't mean anything.
So it doesn't mean... we are expecting our Mashiach.
Right.
Just like all the other nations, actually religions,
right.
They're expecting a savior also.
Right, savior, sure. In other words, the concept of savior is in every religion. Yeah. So that says, right, that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to come back, as we said, right? And what was your question about Moshe Rabbeinu, by the way? You asked something, right?
No, he died.
Yeah, right.
So we went to other religions that they're expecting savior also, that somebody is going to unify and glorify.
The only difference is, right, that their tradition comes from a single person or a single group, which had mistakes, you understand? Our information comes from God. We received the Torah from God. We didn't receive it from some people, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu. Everybody saw that. All the Jews witnessed that.
They are not denying.
But regarding their tradition, it's just something which is man-made,
What do we say about this Yeshu?
Yeshu. Well, Talmud speaks about him. Talmud says several things about him. Okay. That he was a student of Yoshua ben Perachia, who was one of the Tanaim.
He was a knowledgeable guy.
He was a Torah student. Okay. He was a yeshiva guy.
Okay.
Yeshiva guy. So what happened was that the Gemara brings a story about him, right? Story is that he was going with his Rebbe. He was Rabbi Yoshua ben Perachia, and he was traveling to Europe. So on the way back, when they were coming back from Europe to Eretz Israel, so Yoshua ben Perachia, they stopped off, and Yeshu, they stopped off at a hotel, lodging place, inn, Holiday Inn, so they stopped off at the Holiday Inn. So what happens is that there's a woman there who's the innkeeper, the one who's running the manager, So in those days the manager did everything, right? They cooked, they cleaned, everything was done by, it wasn't like a whole, So she cooked for them, she did for them everything that they needed. So what happened was that she did a really good job, she was really good. Good innkeeper, good manager. So what happened was that they were very satisfied with the job that she did. So Yoshua ben Perachia, when they're about to leave, he says to Yeshu, Jesus, tells him, don't you think that this lady is fantastic? I mean, she did a great job for us, She's like, 10 out of 10, top notch. So Yeshu, he answered him a very strange answer. He said, yeah, but he says, her eyes are round, like a ball. So what does that mean? So the Talmud explains that Yeshu had a mistake. He didn't understand what his Rebbe was saying. He thought that his Rebbe was talking about the girl's looks. You understand? So he thought that he was trying to say to the rabbi that the girl he's a nice looking lady. Right. So he said, therefore, but he said, she looks, you're right, she looks good, but her eyes are not so pretty, In other words, she doesn't have those nice oval eyes, those pretty oval eyes. She has the round, like an owl.
So he meant it physically.
Right. He didn't understand. There was a misunderstanding. You understand? So Yoshua ben Perachia, when he heard this thing, he got very angry at Yeshu. Why? He says, you're checking out girls? Huh? That's what you do? You're a yeshiva guy, and you're checking out girls? Okay. Now the thing was that this was really bad. Why? Because this girl was not just a girl. She was married. She was a married lady. You understand? So he said, you're checking out married ladies? You look at them? You look at them? And you want to study Torah with me? I kick you out. So he threw him out. Gave him the boot.
Okay.
You understand? So he throws him out. And Yeshu was very upset. He wants to keep learning. He wants to keep studying. He wants to keep learning, So he comes back to Yoshua ben Perachia and tries to tell him sorry, take me back. Give me a break, come on. Give me a break. So he went to him 9 times, it says in the Talmud, right? Each time he rejected him. He said, don't come to me anymore. I don't want you. So it says that Yeshu came back the 10th time. And at that time, when he came, exactly that moment, Yoshua ben Perachia was saying Kriyat Shema. He was saying Kriyat Shema. He saw him, but he couldn't answer him. He didn't want to talk, What is he going to say? Okay, how are you, So he told him just like, wait a minute, just 1 second. So Yeshu had a misunderstanding also here. They had another misunderstanding. In other words, it seems like they didn't communicate very well, these two guys. You understand? So Yeshu thought that he would tell them, go away, I don't want you, He didn't understand what he was telling him. So Yeshu left, and he became like a big Rasha, he started a different religion. In other words, he wanted to spite, that he was thrown out, he was rejected, so he went and started a church. You understand? This is what happened.
Now, is this what happened, or at that time they had the Bet HaMikdash?
Right.
Okay, and and everybody was obligated to give the charity or to do the right thing to bring the Korban to Bet HaMikdash. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the rabbis were crooked and the Kohanim was crooked.
Yes,
and it was anti this crookedness.
Right, but this is like this is the narrative. What you're talking about is a narrative probably from a different religion. This narrative.
That's
right. But the truth is, according to the Talmud, which we believe in,
Okay, I want to hear Talmud.
According to the Talmud, this is what happened: that he was thrown out, and he tried to get back, and when he was not accepted, and there was a misunderstanding, as we said, right? Okay, so he went and he started a different religion, and he made like big problems. In other words, he became a heretic, basically. He became a denier.
But does he know enough Torah to do the miracles?
So that's the story. Now, how did the miracle thing work? That he went right? They say once he started to, he started his false religion. So what happened was that he wanted to, pull off some miracles to show that he's he's divine, he's a divine person. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So what he did was he went to the Bet HaMikdash, and what happened was that when the Kohanim used to bless the people in the Bet HaMikdash, they would say the real name of God, which is not what we say today, right? It's much different, right? Different pronunciation.
Okay.
So therefore, when they said that name, it was a long name, so that long name is hard to memorize because it has a lot of syllables, it just goes on. Right, exactly. So what happened was that you can't really memorize it, so the only way you can catch it to know that name is to write it down, So what they did was, they didn't want the Kohanim that they should write that name down, because if you know that name, you can do miracles. So when they used to leave the Bet HaMikdash, they would check everybody to see if he has anything in his pockets or anything, No. Frisk him, they frisk him.
The Kohanim knew the name, or they had crypt notes?
They knew the name. They were taught that name, right? They knew. Yeah, they knew. Okay. So, you have to be taught that name. So what happened was that they used to check everybody to make sure there's no writing going out.
The people that got the beracha.
Right.
People that got the blessing.
Anybody who comes there.
Okay.
Anybody who comes there, right?
Everybody comes in, comes out.
That's right. You have to come out naked, right? I'm saying without any, Yeah. So what happened was that Yeshu, he knew this rule. Okay. So what he did was, he etched, that name on his skin, He etched it. Mm-hmm. And he got out. And he had that name on his skin. So that's what he used to do the miracles that he did. That's what the Talmud says, So therefore, all the miracles that he did were with this name of God. And that's how he pulled it off, He stole it. He basically, he pulled off a Brinks job, That's what he did.
More powerful.
That's what he did. And this is why the rabbis killed him, because this was considered to be a very grave sin, Also, all the things that he was doing, causing troubles, making heresy, all these things. In other words, he was saying that you have to believe me, because I can do miracles. He was using that as a stepping stone for his religion. You understand?
That he is also the Son of God.
Right. Well, that I think was brought in later, that element. I'm not really sure that was originally like that. This was, I think, more brought down by the Catholic Church. To make him into a god.
Christianity. Yeah. What year? The Christianity was discovered 400 years later after his death.
That's right. Yes. Not discovered. It was accepted.
Accepted.
I'll tell you what that means. That the Roman Empire accepted at that time. Yeah. Right. Before that, it was just a cult of Jews that were practicing that religion, who were the Talmidim. They were the